I would like to announce our next panel for the day, discussing reskilling workforce by leveraging technology in the new normal. We have amongst us Manish Sharma, Associate Director PwC, Nelly Vortov, CEO Tiger Hall, Ashish Chattaraj, CHRO PayU, Kavita Dasan, Head of People Practice ABP News Network, AN Verma, Executive Director HR NTPC, with the session chair, Dr. Anurag Batra, Chairman and Editor-in-Chief, BW Business World Group. I request the panelists to kindly unmute themselves. Over to you, Dr. Batra.
So sometimes it happens with technology. Our session is about to leverage technology for human resources and for organizations. So we have a very eclectic panel. We have the founder of a HR tech firm which helps organizations and CHROs reskill, retool, and make their colleagues, relevant to what's happening. They provide training in a different video-led format. So let me welcome Nelly Vortov, who's the founder of Tiger Hall, and I would encourage everyone to check out what Tiger Hall has in its content, platform, which it gives out to organizations and HR leaders for them to be able to get their leaders up to speed with what's happening, to inspire them. So welcome, Nelly. We also have Mr. Ashish Chattaraj from PayU, which is again a new age company we have. And Mr. Verma, last time he was on a panel with me. He told me NTPC is more new age than the most new age companies. So Mr. Verma, I know that you are a new age company, but you are a company that was set up in 1976. Mr. D.V. Kapoor was the first chairman, and he's my mentor. And I jokingly tell him, when I grow up, I want to be like him, because he's 92 and he still works 4 hours. That's the kind of person. So I know you are a 44-year young company. We also have Ms. Kavita Dasan, who is the head of the people practice at ABP News Network. We also have Mr. Manish Sharma from PricewaterhouseCoopers. So our topic is about workforce. How does the workforce leverage technology to deal with post-pandemic issues and to build a new HR practice or a people practice? Let me start by asking Nelly, what has changed in the last 6 months, and do you see HR technology, including yours, becoming a more important part of the toolkit that HR leaders have? Nelly, so go ahead, speak. I asked you.
It's very severe audio. I can't really hear the words. Can you hear me?
Yes, Nelly. There's a little voice, but that's okay. There's a background voice, but we can hear you.
It's very difficult to hear. It's very delayed and very raspy.
Yes, we can. India needs to invest in fiber network, improve its technology, but I must be grateful to the telecom providers. Last 6 months, the telecom providers have kept us going and made sure that operations of every business, including media companies, hospital, education. So we must, I believe in looking at the glass half full and not looking at glass half empty. So let's build on what we have. Let's make the best of what we have. Nelly, your opening comment on how HR will use technology more and more, and what are the do's and don'ts. And I asked you, do you see HR managers having Tiger Hall as an important part of their toolkit? Nelly Vortov. I think we are having issues with Nelly's connectivity. Let me bring you in. Ashish, let me ask you the same question.
Sure. First of all, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So when this came up, I was just reading a book, and one of the quotes which touched me was that there are decades where you seem nothing happens, and then there are weeks where decades happen. And I think this is exactly that time when COVID happened. In weeks, it seemed like decades have changed. The entire concept of how we work, how we connect with employees has changed. Physical proximity has now moved to physical distancing, and to carry on a relationship with your employees on a physically distant environment is absolutely challenging. And the only tool that you have to connect with your employees with this physical distancing is through the social connectivity and where technology becomes the most important thing. So during all those times, that's in bottom line. How important technology is. The entire concept of working hours, the entire concept of coming to office has really changed to having more productive tools, and how you are able to engage with your more productively. Now, coming to an organization or HR, what does it mean? To me as an HR professional, I believe the biggest inclusiveness is technological inclusiveness. Because when you include your employees on a technological journey, you really make them a part of that journey. When we talk about an AI, data science, algorithms, it should not be something which is like an algebra which nobody understands, but it is something which every employee should be able to understand and be part of the journey. And then only you can technologically create innovation in the organization, and that's what great organizations do. And I think that's what we strive to do by making concepts of artificial intelligence to data science extremely accessible to every employee. So what is actually artificial intelligence? It's just but about a set of data patterns and through which you can reason and you can create answers. Now, we have set up plans through which, whether it is for the leaders, whether it is for the employees, we encourage them to really understand this and become a part of the journey. And I think finally, the most important thing is, as we are moving this as an HR organization, as an HR fraternity, that you have to enable every employee to understand tech and product. Because the future is a tech product sales organization. Now, your sales guys have to understand tech and product to sell it. Now, how do you really do it? Is actually making your folks across the organization understand the usability of the products that you're creating, the platform that you're creating, and how scalable they are to change the world. Because at the end of it, all the technology that we're creating has to be ethical and sustainable. And that's the bottom line of any technological innovation, to create a world which is much better than what it was yesterday. So I think,
Ashish, how do we make sure that, for example, we are doing contactless hiring, so we are using HR tech. We are using contactless training. We are using HR tech. So tell us, what is the new playbook when you do contactless HR function, if I may say? For example, what is the playbook for training and development? How do you upskill your, because there is a new set of skills required in a post-pandemic world. So is there a playbook?
Absolutely, it is a good question. And actually, it makes me really think that, when we had this contactful world, was that really meaningful? Because actually things are working pretty great with the contactless world. What has really changed in contactless world has made us rethink about everything. When you're having the trainings, it's about how are you really upskilling those employees and identifying the exact pockets where you have the deficiency or inefficiency, and creating them to be more efficient in understanding the organization vision, mission, and ability to understand the broader organizational context. That becomes very important. Training is actually being moved up just to being filling up a training calendar to be actually more precise, because your business productivity is going to be impacted if you're unable to really pinpoint what has to be changed. And I think that's where some of the things like we are doing, we're upscaling each of our sales guys in terms of really understanding what the product offering is. We are into frictionless payment world, so how do you really sell it? What are the use cases? And that, I think we are putting much more effort on training, helping people to understand technology during this pandemic. And coming to
we'll come back to you for more comments. At this point, let me bring in Nelly's joined us again. Nelly, when you talk to HR managers before Corona and now you talk to HR managers after Corona, what is the change in mindset? Are they more open to what you do and the kind of content you provide? Give us a peek into that.
So with the risk of repeating maybe what Ashish have already shared, since I didn't hear his response from my side, what I see a lot is it has to be the people first. You have to start with the people. Around 70% of technology and digital transformation projects fail, and they do fail because the people were not involved. You were not focused on the people to start with. So what we see is a lot of people talk about the technology, the platforms, the tech, and all of these integration processes and technological processes. But within that, you forget the people side of it. So getting the people on board from start is very, very key. And that includes explaining what is the why behind it for everyone in the workforce. What is the why? Why are you doing this, and how will it impact them, right? So what is the positive impact and the benefits to them of going through this project? So starting with the people, putting things in place to be able to train them properly, getting them into the mindset before you even embark the program. So when we've seen our clients who are doing digital transformation, when they start with that mindset shift and making the people ready first, that's when we've seen a lot of success. So starting with mindset change, getting people into that right zone and the right area to be able to do the change. And then after that, you go through with all of the rest of the technology.
Perfect. Let me bring in Kavita. Kavita, media has been, impacted in a very different way. Tell us how is the usage of technology for upskilling and doing a lot of functions that we used to do pre-corona being replaced by technology? What has been replaced and what has not been replaced?
So I think the way of working, the stereotype with which we used to work, 20 years, we've seen certain practices or people have come with the mindset that we knew the game. COVID actually made us realize we probably have to rethink and reinvent the game. And I think that has been the biggest change. The mindset of people that I know my business has suddenly become a big question mark. What I knew till yesterday, is it relevant today? All of a sudden, people have started, questioning about those things. And when the journey starts with probably not knowing and everybody coming together in the boardroom and saying, let's together figure it out, probably is the first step. And that's what has really changed. I also see a lot of openness in people. This last 4-5 months has been very testing, especially in media, in news media, where 70% of our workforce is reporting from ground zero. We've had a tough time because there was not a single day when we were not working or we were not in action. So, when your team is working and you're the front line warriors, I think this battle becomes multifold, because safety of people versus the ways of working to reinventing, and everything is all on the go. You don't have time to really say that, okay, let's shut down and take 2 days and think through and do it. It is on the go, on the move. So we've seen a lot of the leadership and team below come together, put their heads in terms of saying, let's figure out a way. People have actually shared the stereotype of functions. So, you are HR, you are personal, you are marketing, no more. I mean, those things don't matter. Anybody can have an idea and everybody come together and do it. So that's been one big change that I've seen. We've also, I think, from people mindset, earlier there used to be a thought process when you said, okay, let's do training or development and so on. People used to assume that, okay, maybe I know it or I'll do it if I really have to, or I'm great. But those mindsets have really changed. And today I have seen so many open people coming up and saying, can we train? Can we learn? Can we all go and figure out together? I mean, that has been the biggest change that I've seen in people. Also, these have been times where more usage of technology has brought in vulnerability in people. People psychologically has started really breaking down. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of psychological pressure that I see in people. So the way managers used to handle teams really need to, be redone. So a lot of workshops that we've done were more on counseling and mindfulness and resilience building to, handhold this tough time. So technology has enabled, people have become more open. And I guess it's all about coming together and figuring it out, because new is very new.
And it's a new abnormal. I don't call it the normal. There's nothing normal about the current environment. It's totally abnormal. I mean, Mr. Verma, you're a very large organization across multiple locations. And tell us how the absorption of technology has increased in HR. First of all, has it increased? I'm supposing it has increased, but I shouldn't be presumptuous. And second, especially in the area of upskilling, T&D, how has technology played a bigger role?
Thank you, Dr. Batra. At the outset, let me congratulate you for organizing a host of webinars in the last 3-4 months, and they are all very relevant. And today's topic is extremely relevant in the sense that the reskilling the workforce with the help of technology is very close to our heart, and NTPC has been putting a lot of emphasis on upskilling their workforce right from the beginning. But in the aftermath of COVID-19, this is all the more relevant because you see, in the last program also I told that we are spread over the length and breadth of the country, and right from 14 megawatt to 800 megawatt units, we have about 200 units across the country, and managing the entire affairs from gas-based turbines to thermal units to hydro units, it's a very big challenge. But we have been mindful of the use of technology, and we have in fact used technology in a very, very large scale to upskill our employees. When I say employees, I mean the executives, the non-executives, the outsourced workers, the contract people, everyone. And as our organization, we have to necessarily, substantial part of the people have to necessarily go at the work site to ensure that the power generation, this is about 25% of the country's total requirement, is ensured by us. So 25% power generation is a big challenge, and about say 60% of workforce are required to go to the work sites. And because of the pandemic, those located in the cities, they were required to stay indoors. So we have used technology in a very large scale, and the web-based programs, the learning methodology, the augmented, the virtual reality programs, the e-learning programs across units has paid rich dividends, and we have seen that the benefits that is accruing through the web-based learning and utilizing it to the workplace.
You're saying the benefits
is very
of
seamless.
web-based learning. That should be music to Nelly's ear, because that's what Tiger Hall and Nelly do. So tell us, what are the benefits?
Yes.
If you can dive into specifics.
See, pre-COVID, we were focusing more on the in-house and the physical learnings. The engineers and the technicians and the other employees and managers were required to come to the learning centers. This is not the case now, and it is not for the whole of the 2 days or 3 days program. Now we are focusing more and more on what is the available time to the individuals, and part of the day's time is utilized in learning, and then rest is being used in actual experience. So that is giving a much more focused effect on the overall performance of the people, and that is also being reflected in the better output and
Thank you
better
so much,
productivity.
Mr. Verma. Let me bring in Manish for his opening comments before we open up. Manish, in your consulting is all about people. There's no plants, there's nothing. It's about their knowledge edge. It's about their motivation. So tell us, what have you done to make sure in a knowledge-oriented world, you've used technological tools to reskill, and give us what has been the output or the benefits of that, and how do you see more web-based content and products like Tiger Hall, kind of helping your colleagues? You'll have to unmute yourself, Manish. Unmute is the second most used word of 2020, first being COVID, the third being mute.
Sorry, I missed the drill. So Anurag, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's a very beautiful day in India. So Anurag, I would like to start with a cartoon I came across some time back, where there's a boardroom meeting which is happening where the CXOs are discussing, hey, look what, digital transformation is light years away. And then there's a giant iron ball called COVID, which is just about to strike that boardroom. So we are in that interesting time today. So there are two things I would like to talk about, Anurag. What I see personally changing over next 5 years or so, and then I'm going to dwell deeper in what we are doing in PwC with regards to that. We talked about BYOD a few years back, right? Bring your own device. It was a very known acronym. I would say now the things are moving toward BYOO, which is bring your own office. that is one paradigm change which is going to happen. Your office is going to travel with you. It's not that it's going to be very different from you. Second thing, what I'm going to say is that we talked about WFH, which is work from home paradigm. And I think that's going to change to WFA, which is work from anywhere. So these are the two things. We are sitting on that brink of that revolution, which were talked about being light years away. Now coming back to what we are trying to do in PwC. So Anurag, long back we had started using the word human capital for the people. We stopped using the word human resources. I mean, in fact, we'll feel offended if someone calls our people as resource. We call human capital. They're capital for us. And if they're capital, we started investing in the technology-based learning quite in advance. 6 months back, Anurag, in your own event in the HR Business Summit, I had talked about how artificial intelligence is going to disrupt this entire shift. And that time the COVID had not started. But look, we are here today, right? And
4th March.
Yeah, right, absolutely. So at that point in time, since we had invested a lot on the learning systems, and our learning systems are already artificial intelligence based, more personalized, I think that actually helped us to maybe take that leap, which was like 5 years to maybe in 5 months, if I were to put it that way. The learning system, which is contextualized for the user needs, it's a role-based learning system, bases the kind of people, and also, will the physical part go away? The answer is no. I think now what we need to look at is more of a hybrid model. How can we make a right mix, which is more driven towards people? Interestingly, I was reading a survey for Google. Google recently carried out a survey for its internal employees. 62% of them said that they want to go back to office, right? And that's a very, very interesting sign.
60% said they want to go back to office.
Yes.
By the way, I have been to Google's office, and it's not an office. It's like, it had EDR or canteen is like a 5-star restaurant. It has every cuisine. And you can get a haircut. I also go for a haircut. That's a serious one, not a joke. But it's, the larger point you're making, offices are places to interact. There is a certain experience of an office. There is certain collaborativeness to it. And that may not go away. And for a lot of people, I mean, if you look at India's reality, we have small homes, larger homes than Bombay, Singapore, China. But if you have 2 kids and they are doing their education, you need 2 separate rooms from them. If you have 2 working parents, you need 2 separate. So you need 4 rooms just for making sure that the basic of work and education goes on. So working from home is not that. And dare I say, the productivity of everyone from working from anywhere, as you said, is not productive. The people who were more motivated, self-driven before Corona, they could work from anywhere, and they continue to work from anywhere. And I just want to say, I want to bring in Nelly at this point. Nelly, when you would talk to HR heads, CEOs, say in February, and you present to them Tiger Hall, and now that you talk to them virtually about what you do at Tiger Hall, what is the mindset change? How have the conversations changed? I'm assuming that they'll be much more open to what Tiger Hall does and adopt the product. Give us some moments of truth.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's been very interesting because there's been a lot of difference from if we take February, March, April, when we were just getting into this, right? There were many people scrambling for like the short-term solutions. So it's a lot of quite short-term focus on like, okay, how do we get everyone remote? How do we get everyone set up? How do we get everyone to like learn about how do we collaborate remotely, right? So a lot of the solutions they were looking for at that point was focused on the here and now. But I think what was interesting was around June, July, I started seeing a real shift in mindset in terms of just the horizon that people were looking at. So the HR leaders that we're working with, they started planning for the next 3 to 5 years. And one of the big banks here in Singapore is one of our clients, for example. They were planning in this like work from anywhere, just like Manish mentioned. It's not going to be work from home, it's going to be work from anywhere. And they're planning that indefinitely. So they were not thinking like, what are we doing 2020? What's going to come back 2021? It's what are we doing for the rest of our lives, right? And the same kind of thinking has then been applied to learning as well. So that's where we've seen a lot more focus on the mindsets. As I mentioned before, the focus on how do we get people into the mind space to get them through this, because everything starts with people and the mind space that they are in. So what we saw was first very tactical, like how do we handle this period? And now it's a lot of talk around how do we build resilience? That is one of the top topics on Tiger, one of the key requests from our clients. How do we build resilient leaders? How do we build collaboration? How do we build a resilient workforce overall? So very much focus on like how do we build up our people to be ready for the new normal in the future that we're going into, right? But I also do think that HR leaders are still really underestimating the impact that they can have in this. I see a lot of HR leaders still being very focused on process and what to do and like actionables instead of thinking bigger and more long term. And for example, when it comes to digital transformation projects or changing mind shifts, there's so many data points that HR is sitting on that could be super helpful for the rest of the business. So thinking more long-term, pulling in the data that you have access to, because when you have access to people data, that's the most powerful data in any business, because all business is all about people. That's what a business is. So leveraging that more is something that I'm also having a lot of conversations around currently. Like how can you leverage data on what your people are learning, what their goals are, what their aspirations are, what their challenges are, leverage those data points and those insights to drive transformation and help other business units across the entire organization. So I think many HR leaders are still undervaluing their role and the impact they can actually have, because they can have a super big impact on the entire organization and the future and the strategy, but they're not taking that opportunity. And that's what I would like to see a bit more from HR side, is to take more opportunity to drive bigger impact and getting out of the just siloed HR space.
And for the benefit of our viewers, listeners, and the audience, tell them what Tiger Hall is, and tell me what you already said that number one searched, content is around resilience. I know you sent me a link about thinking big, and I still haven't watched it. Maybe tomorrow. So tell us a bit about Tiger Hall to our panelists and to our viewers.
Yeah, as what we do, we work with organizations to help drive mindset shift and leadership skills and soft skills so on at scale. So what we do is that we bring in senior business leaders, real world experts like presidents, C-level executives, cloud scientists, people who are really experienced in their fields, who are working in the real world at the moment. And then we bring them in and we create content together with them. So it's digital content and interactive experiences that is all mobile first and mobile development programs. So if you're looking to, for example, change mindsets at scale or drive a certain culture agenda, that's something that we help with. So the kind of programs that we run are very much focused on areas like design thinking, data science, UI UX, developing resilient leaders, and all these kind of like mindsets changes that you're looking to do at across the organization. So we usually work with CEOs on their culture agenda and on their strategic direction, and a lot with senior HR leaders as well. Who are looking to drive that at scale through a mobile way. So that's why we've seen a lot this year. Last year, people were still very focused on like classroom training and doing those things to drive that mindset change. Whereas now people are coming back like, oh, you did something digital in this space, right? So that's very much what we're focused on. And we work with companies like HP, DBS, Spotify, and so on to help them build their leaders across the organization.
Thank you, Nelly. Kavita, let me ask you a question. When the focus is on business continuity, is on survival,
Yes.
is on doing basics right, do you think training and development and upskilling is part of a people leader's mindset? And the question I'm asking is, like Nelly said, everyone is thinking long term. But are we thinking long term in India? Let me ask this question. Are we focused on immediate term and medium term?
It's a good question. It's a very good question. And so while it's a garden of paradox, you are managing between the short term, long term, and the emergency situation, and you have to do it simultaneously. I can tell you at ABP, this has been 1 year where we've invested highest in people development, because we realize the kind of skill set change that's happening, and the kind of the working that people require, the kind of analytics that's required, the automation that is required, that has been highest during this period. So there's no two ways that if we don't reskill people and upskill people, the continuity of business is not there. So I think there's a very high level of focus in terms of ensuring that these two happen simultaneously.
Fantastic. Ashish, you're in the fintech space, you're in the technology space, so technology comes naturally to you. You meaning your organization. Tell us in a nuanced way, in an evolved way, where do you see training and development and upskilling going, especially in the context of technology and a hybrid model, if not a pure technology model?
Wow, great question. So I think where I see the future is, it's the world is going to move more into platform-based organization. So what a platform is, a place where you will get multiple, whether vendors, sources together on a digital platform. And to create that kind of a world and environment, you need, what is the kind of skill set of people you need? You need the skill set of people who are, because the technology advances very fast. Now, to have the right source of people, you need to continuously invest in the technological upgradation of the skills, as well as in terms of the overall upskilling of the talent base to take up future challenges to grow into beyond the contours of India. You want to really be so scalable in terms of processes and all that. You're a bigger organization providing services worldwide. So I think in this hybrid model, what's going to work is two things. One is the organization has to provide the guardrails and framework for an employee to really, work on it and use it. But there'll be a lot of dependence or a lot of expectation from the employee to invest on themselves. Because I think gone are the days when HR is the mother who's going to call and teach everyone. But now it's a very mutual ground. I mean, we will try to provide you the absolute right framework, but the dependence or the expectation on you is also to use it. So the web-based programs, courses, whether from Udemy and others, are really costly and great programs. And to really utilize it, the employees have to invest, and we are very, very, that is a very critical aspect of us, where we hold the management, the leadership, and ourselves accountable.
And how do outcomes?
Having the
measure outcomes. I know traditionally we are, but
I'll tell you how we measure outcomes. So in an HR, I'll take a simple thing, an AI or data science is people confuse it only being, something sitting in an ivory tower and creating fancy design patterns. But I think for every function, even in HR, what is the problem statement that I'm trying to solve, and how can I solve it more efficiently is a data science statement for me. And that's what I would challenge my team, and so would a sales function challenge their team to understand how do you rightly generate those leads, and where to target. So everywhere it is actually having the smart data, correlating it and doing it more efficiently, because you will work more and more efficient way with a leaner workforce, with a smarter data to fuel you to go and bite it. So I think the utilization of data will become very important across functions. It's not only engineers who are going to do it. It is HR, finance, sales. Everybody needs to use it. How you use data to make decisions, and that's the bottom line of being an artificial intelligence or whatever. It's just being normally intelligent. How you use data.
Mr. Verma, we'd call Ashish, in old times we'd call it insights. We wouldn't call it data. And data must lead to insights, and dare I say actionable insight. Mr. Verma, give us a slice of what you're looking to do in NTPC over the next 6 to 12 months in terms of training and development and L&D, especially using technology. You'll have to unmute yourself, Mr. Verma.
As we see the impact of COVID in our functioning, we find that some of the jobs will become redundant, and the people who are performing those jobs may not be relevant for the organization unless they retrain and upskill their levels. So to my mind, training is going to play a very vital role in times to come for making the organization viable and effective and cost effective in the fiercely competitive environment. So we have to continue to ensure the cost effective generation of power, and for that the employees have to be very, very smart, lean and thin, and very performance driven.
They have to be
Yeah.
They have to
Yeah.
be agile. They have to kind of reinvent themselves on the go.
A lot of process improvisation is also taking place in the company, in the sense that shared services concept is being implemented in a very large manner, and we are trying to optimize the services functions to a very great extent.
Thank you so much. Manish, you heard everyone. Now let me, you brought in new points, and Jeevan from Tiger Oil is asking Mr. Verma and also Ms. Wartoft and everyone on the panel, how can we engage millennials and even Gen Zs entering the workforce? I mean, they are digital natives, that they're very comfortable with technology. So their adoption of, let's say, a Tiger Owl kind of product should be better and will be better than somebody like me, right? I'd like to meet someone, spend 2 hours physically across the table, have a cup of tea, learn. Whereas, so tell us, what are you doing to make sure that Gen Z and millennials will join the workforce, and they've not had a physical orientation. They haven't seen the physical office. They haven't done the handshakes. They haven't done the celebratory party. How do you make sure that they are integrated using technology?
Perfect. Very, very relevant and excellent question, Anurag. And interestingly, both Nelly and I, we come from the business side as against the HR fraternity, who are the other esteemed panelists. The paradigms have changed, Anurag, as I was mentioning earlier. HR is no longer a support function. And at business, we are producing for HR and HR is producing for us. For example, we take inputs on what kind of technology we need to look at, basis the input for HR provides us, and HR becomes that execution function. Now, interestingly, when we look at this particular aspect, and I think Nelly very interestingly pointed about that when we look at the digital transformation, it's the people which matters most. And that is why the most initiatives actually fail. And how do you engage people? The content has to be interactive, period. I mean, there are no ifs and buts. I mean, when you talk about... Absolutely. Whether you talk about Gen Z, right, whether we talk about Gen Z, millennial, anyone, Anurag, you would not try to, get into a training or a discussion which is boring, right? Neither am I. Not anyone on the panel would do that.
We all are screenagers. We may not be teenagers, but we all are screenagers. We're
Absolutely.
Screens.
Interesting words, teenagers. And I think one thing...
Before February, if my colleagues asked me, is work from home allowed? Guess what would I say to them? I would say yes. On Saturday and Sunday, work from home is allowed.
Good one.
Let me get the closing comments from all of you. Let me start with Mr. Verma. Mr. Verma, your prediction for how technology will take over skilling and L&D in a big way.
I think that the L&D and technology is going to take very substantially, even for companies like who are in the public sector space. We have to ensure that the workforce that is working for the company is agile, lean and thin, and smart enough to meet the new age challenges. So technology and both L&D efforts have to go simultaneously to suit the requirement of the employees who are performing, and making them effective for meeting the newer challenges. So in my opinion, the L&D efforts, smarter L&D efforts, web-based, artificial reality, augmented reality, virtual reality, everything has to be ensured seamlessly to ensure that effectiveness of the employees goes up. And even for people who are at the higher age level, they have to adopt to the newer technological advances. Otherwise, they will become very, very irrelevant.
Okay, Ashish, your closing comments on whether the L&D budgets will get focused toward technology products in terms of L&D.
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you why it will get focused. What if I have to expect something from from a training. I want it to be available at any time. I want to see it. The best content training, something which I add value. Gone are the days when a physical classroom would provide me. I need the best content available at I want, and that's what a millennial wants. That's what everybody wants, and that's where that investment on technological training becomes extremely important, because that's where I think we will get the best content available, and the people who will make use of this content are the people who will upskill themselves for the future growth. So it's a coexistence and a co-burden on the content and the people to utilize it effectively. For sure, I think the future is technological intervention in every part of life, whether it is training, whether it is hiring, whether it is everything that we do.
Thank you so much, Ashish. Kavita, is it possible that we have L&D and training on the cloud? You think fully? Can we see that happening over the? That's a serious question. I mean, my hunch is the B School of the future will be on a cloud. It doesn't
Absolutely.
have to. It can be a new B School that doesn't exist. It can come from nowhere and become something that is very important. So, Kavita, what's your prediction for the future?
So one thought that I would like to share and one data point: continuous learning is the only way forward, and it has to be hand in hand with technology and in all the ways that we learn. About 75 million job roles will be obsolete by the end of 2022, and that's something which we can see just published. And about 133 million new job roles will be introduced. Now imagine a scenario where almost double the size of job roles have been introduced, and if people are not trained or developed, half of the population will be jobless. So there are more and more jobs which will get evolved basis technology. It's only about learning and doing it. So that's the only way forward.
Okay, Manish, your final prediction.
I'll just keep it short and sweet.
WFA and bring your own office, BYOO.
Well,
Because of
Gave
this,
us-
I thought it meant bring your own opium. But
Lovely. That was good. So Anurag, there's just two things I would like to conclude with. Number one, let us focus on gamification when we talk about the trainings to make it interesting. That's very, very important aspect. We have to keep the people engaged across levels, whether it's L&D and the regular training. It's about the employee engagement that matters. Second thing, Anurag, we would need to move our mindset from upskilling, reskilling to pivot skilling. I would say the skills have to be pivoted now. If you look at World Economic Forum, the top 3 skills we talk about is creativity, problem solving, and working with people. If these are the top 3 skills of the next decade, our trainings and content also need to speak similarly about it. And then the final point is, very interestingly, people say, oh, you know what, is the technology-based learning, it is going to be making people who are on the senior side, they'll be disadvantaged, or the millennial will be more advantaged. My answer is no. I'll go with the Darwin's theory. It's not the intelligent of the species, not the strongest of the species. It's the most adaptable of the species which survive. So now
Absolutely.
we are at the common podium. It's about using it to the best of our interest.
Nelly, you have the final word. You heard Mr. Verma, you heard Ashish, you heard Kavita, you heard Manish. Your final word.
So I would like to add one word that I think is the future of learning and development, and that's consumerization. And tying into the Gen Z question, millennials, we need to start looking at what do people do outside of work? Because outside of work, everything is one click away, everything is engaging. People spend time on Instagram, TikTok, Amazon, Netflix. Why isn't learning like that? How can we make learning more like the tools that people are using outside? Why do you come into the office space and everything is 15 clicks away and very difficult to use? So I think the key to learning and engaging people in learning and upskilling will be to consumerize it. And that includes more engaging content, leveraging things like influencer, making it mobile first. I know we've spoken about web-based learning. I think that's already gone. It needs to be mobile first, on the go, use it wherever you are, tapping into it as easy as you tap into an Instagram, right? Or scrolling TikTok. That's the kind of learning that we need to see. And that's what's going to engage millennials, Gen Zs. It's no longer long video formats. It has to be short, sweet, engaging, and consumerized. So my key word for prediction is consumerization.
Thank you so much, Nelly. That's a key takeaway from right. I went out with my kids and wife for dinner last night, and they're constantly, even while having dinner, they're constantly engaging with their phone in spite of course.
Exactly.
And
that could be on a learning platform.
there's, and they're both young adults. They're teens. One is 13, the other is 17. So they do what they have to do, and clearly, even in Gen Z and millennials, they're always connected. And sometimes I say disconnected because they're too connected. But I agree with you. If we have to really integrate technology into learning, we have to embrace consumerism in the way millennials consume content outside work. I think that's a very beautiful and impactful point you made. Thank you to all our panelists. Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Thank you, Mr. Verma. Thank you, Ms. Dawson. Thank you, Ms. Wartoff. And thank you, Mr. Chaturaj. At 5:30 p.m., Paul Dupis does his keynote, and then our jury chair. And Kavita, you're a jury member. Nelly, you're a jury member. We'll see you at the awards to unveil the first BW People 40 under 40.